Good morning and welcome to Morning Moments. I'm so glad that you came and joined us today, whatever platform you're watching Morning Moments on today. Today I have a filmmaker. He is in North Carolina, not too far from us here in Virginia Beach, Christopher Zaluski. And Christopher has produced a film called Theirs is the Kingdom. He's done other films, but I'm sure he wants to talk about that. But it's my pleasure to bring Christopher to Morning Moments. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I want to ask you the same question that I ask everybody. What do you do and why do you do it?
Sure. Well, I'm a documentary filmmaker. And so I've been doing this for, about 12 years or so. I was a journalist before I was a filmmaker. I worked for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and then the Roanoke Times in Roanoke, Virginia. And, you know, a lot of people come to filmmaking from a number of different backgrounds. For me, my passion for filmmaking and my passion for being a journalist, which is kind of how I got into this, has always been rooted in storytelling and stories. I mean, when I was growing up, I grew up in Northeast Ohio, in Canton, Ohio. And I mean, I had a little paper for our neighborhood. I always wanted to be a writer, be a storyteller, hear other people's stories and share them with others. And so the platforms changed, the technologies changed, the mediums changed. But for me, it's always been rooted in story. And, you know, I don't know if part of that was I'm an only child. And so I'm an extrovert. So I'm always trying to meet people and talk to people. And so maybe I needed that interaction, you know, I still need that. But that you know, that process of hearing other stories and feeling really honored to be able to share them with others now as a filmmaker, you know, that's just something that gives me, that charges me, that kind of drives me. And I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah. People who like stories draw stories out of other people, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I think that's true. And I think that there's a, you know, especially with documentary, I have friends that make documentary and fiction films, kind of scripted and non-scripted. For me, I have no desire to do anything but documentary. I've never wanted to do the other side because I just feel like you're right. Like being able to hear other people's stories in a real authentic way, that's what drives me. And so, yeah, I think the storytellers attract stories and vice versa, maybe.
Yeah. And sometimes you pursue them, but most of the time they just fall in your lap. Just all of a sudden they're there, right?
Well, you know, they evolve or they snowball depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, you always have to be open to it. You always have to have your eyes open and be looking for stories. I think once you start tuning your brain into finding stories and talking to people and trying to hear, you know, their stories, I think you find them more easily. But I mean, going back to when I used to be a newspaper reporter, I mean, you had that idea of pounding the pavement and trying to, you know, knock on people's doors and do that type of thing. It's a learned skill after a while. It really is. But this film in particular, this was one where I told myself, I'm going to follow this for, you know, a week or two and make a short film for this church to use. And then I followed the story for 3 years. So what do I know? Things evolve and they snowball.
So the story is centered around a mural, right? Is that
Yep.
a way I understand? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the film follows the creation of a fresco style mural in the sanctuary of this small church in Asheville, North Carolina. And if I, you know, hearing the word fresco, you may think of, you know, the Sistine Chapel or the Last Supper by Da Vinci. It's an art form that's not really practiced that much anymore. So that was the first thing that kind of drew me to it, is that, you know, aren't a lot of frescoes being painted anymore. I don't know about Virginia Beach, but, you know, you're not seeing them in most parts of the world. And so that was one thing that kind of drew me to the story. And then the other thing was this church, it's called the Haywood Street Congregation. Its primary focus is helping folks who are living on the streets, folks who are dealing with addiction, some folks who are dealing with mental illness, and then some that are dealing with all three of those things. And so this fresco mural is actually painting and depicting people who are actually living in the Asheville community battling these things. And so the film follows the painting, but you also meet a number of folks who are being painted in the fresco. You hear them, you hear their actual stories.
So it becomes more than just a painting of a person, just some unknown person. There's each one has a story that needs to be heard in their life, right?
Yeah. There's about 30 people who were featured in the actual painting. I mean, we're talking, a 30-foot wide, 10-foot tall, very big mural. For obvious reasons, I couldn't feature everybody in the film, but there's about 11 people who you hear from in the film, and you hear their stories. And so that's kind of mixed in with the art process. And yeah, I think that, to your point, I think that everybody has a story that needs to be told. And these are stories that hopefully open people's eyes to, maybe more of an empathetic view toward homelessness, toward the other, whoever that other might be.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
And a lot of times when we see the homeless, we see them, typically people will say, oh, there they are blocking the intersection again with a cardboard sign,
Sure.
and people want to roll the window down, go get a job. And there's a lot of things that are said to folks. And you a lot of times we can turn our nose up to them if we're not careful, and think it's all their fault that they're there.
Yeah, or turn our eyes or avert our eyes to them. And 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 this is kind of a running theme in the film, is that if I don't look at you, it means that I don't think you're a human being.
Right.
And so this fresco, the symbolism of actually taking people who are on the margins of society and putting them in a large scale painting, so you have to look at them, you have to address them, you have to recognize their humanity. As a filmmaker and a storyteller, there's a lot of beautiful symbolism with that attracted me to this. And so I think that there's a message, just doing that, there's a really profound message that that the fresco certainly gets across.
Yeah, when we were talking about this, I'm reminded of a story that happened to me, and I think I'll just share it real quick. I was in Philadelphia, and I was staying at a hotel, and about 3 or 4 blocks from this was a managed care company I was training, and I had my cup of coffee in my hand, and I was walking to the managed care company to train some nurses there, and I already had 2 or 3 cups of coffee already that was from in the hotel. And I looked, and there was a homeless guy hovered around the intake of this building, trying to get the warm air from this intake. And I looked down at my coffee, and I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I just gave him my coffee.
Hmm.
So I walked over and handed him my coffee, and what he said really was amazing. He says, "Thank you," and then he said, "Not thank you for the coffee, although I appreciate it, but thank you for recognizing me as a human being."
Mm, mm.
Wow, did that hit home?
Yeah.
Sometimes we turn our eyes. These are human beings, fellow brothers, fellow people that
Mhm.
we just turn our eyes from because we don't want to look at somebody that is down and out. And it sounds
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
message of your film was to bring into light folks that are in need, right?
Yeah. I think that's one of the main messages. You know, to not turn away. It's not a film some people, when they hear documentary, they may think more of an essay style that has a problem and a solution. This film does not offer a solution. This is a really tough, this is a difficult problem that many all municipalities, all towns, all states, everybody's dealing with something like this. This is more of a film that forces you to reflect on some of these ideas and your own beliefs and some things that you've done before that we've all done. We've all averted our eyes, and it's kind of asking the question, what does that mean? And, whether or not you are a person of faith, these are things that everybody should be struggling with, right? These are tough questions that you should be struggling with.
Awareness. And I think that's what I'm hearing you is to be aware that there's a problem
Mhm.
and put the problem out there and say, now what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully, and I think that, with any problem, it kind of starts on an individual level, or I should say any solution can start on an individual level. And so hopefully maybe this film could help people kind of just think about this in a different way, maybe. I think this is an easy thing to ignore. And so if it puts this at the front of your mind, that's a goal of the film for sure. And another goal of the film, I don't know where your listeners are coming from today or your viewers, but if you are in the Western North Carolina region or near Asheville, I would encourage you to go see the fresco in real life. I mean, it's a beautiful piece of art that the film can only attempt to do justice. I mean, it really is amazing. So if you find yourself in Asheville, go to Haywood Street and check out the fresco in person.
What I'm going to do is from the time this is recorded to the time it's being seen, I'm going to do the best I can to get pictures of it and put it down below too.
Oh, great.
So
Sure,
folks
sure.
can see that. I'm going to put some look down below, depending on where you're watching this. And if you don't have that access, go to my YouTube channel or my Facebook, and you'll see that's where I'm going to be putting this down. I'm also going to put information down below about Christopher, about not only this movie, but other movies he's involved with, other projects he's involved with. He does a lot of different things. He's he's a filmmaker. He's connected, I think, Wake Forest, right? He's still connected to Wake Forest,
Yep.
in the film departments there, and so he's got a lot of things that he does. But one of the things that I would encourage you to do of watching this, if you would, lift Christopher up in prayer and pray that God would continue to put him in the right place at the right time, bringing to light the stories and other stories that need to be told, and giving him strength and funding that God would just help him. God is our very present help in the time of trouble, and we can trust in him. And if you'll pray for him, I'm sure he would appreciate it.
I would. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Christopher. And thank you for joining us for Morning Moments. If you've enjoyed this, share this. You go into Asheville, go check out that mural next time I go to Asheville. I know I'm going to check it out.
Awesome.
And be sure to share this with others. And, look around instead of looking away to people who are in need today. What can you do to help their need out? I think that's real important. Thank you so much, and keep coming back for some more Morning Moments.